Okay. Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining us at Khurana University's Force Space, and thank you for joining us for today's event, the Cansbridge on Campus. Let's call it a mini conference. Now, to help situate you, we are streaming to YouTube. We are live from Force Space, and we are located here on unceded Indigenous lands in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. In Force Space, we work with the university community to help mobilize knowledge, co-create daily activities, just looking at questions and projects that are happening across the university. And today we're running this event as a live stream Zoom meeting. So anyone popping in, joining us there, if you have any questions, just pop them into the chat. We can read them out, etc. Those of you here in the space, if you have any questions later on, just raise your hand. We'll bring a microphone over to you so that everyone online can hear. And with that, it's my pleasure to hand it over to the executive director of the Cansbridge Fellowship, Gabi Foss. Gabi, it's great to have you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having us. This is our first ever session at Concordia, so go team for making it happen. Very lucky to be joined by our first ever Concordia Fellow as well, Charlie here, who will be sharing some stories. And again, my name is Gabi. I'm the Executive Director of the Cansbridge Fellowship. I'm also a 2019 Fellow. I spent my summer back in 2019 in the forests of Laos working at a forestry company in corporate sustainability. Hello to those who are joining us. And it has immensely impacted my life since then, very much blown open my sense of what's possible for my life and my career. And so it's my great pleasure to now be serving as ED and getting to run sessions like this. So with that, okay, so this will be our agenda for today. We'll talk a little bit about the fellowship program, what it's all about, and then we'll have a few topics relating to this format of first bridging to ourselves, then bridging to each other, and then bridging to the world. And why we say bridging to all these things is because we've done a lot of reflecting in the last year as to what the Cansbridge leadership development methodology is, and really conceptualize this structure of first needing to encourage fellows to connect or bridge to themselves. So that's talking about purpose, self-awareness, and specifically this topic of ikigai, which we'll introduce. And then we talk a lot about bridging or connecting to each other through specifically the skill of storytelling. And we have a special guest who will talk a little bit about that as well. And that's a big skill that we promote within the fellowship. And we do a lot of talking about community building and relationship building as it relates to both the fellowship experience, but then also when people are abroad on their internships, how do you build community abroad? So that's bridging to each other. And then last, once you've kind of connected to yourself, connected to other people, then you're very equipped to connect to global experience, such as the fellowship. So that'll be our format. So our mission, both as an organization and here on campus today, is to open Canadian students' minds to a world of possibility. The way that we do that with the fellowship is we enable a cohort of 15 to 20 fellows per year to self-organize an internship in Asia. So self-organize meaning we do not give them the fish, and the fish meaning the internship. We teach you how to fish for an internship in a country where you've never visited, have no familial relations, don't know the language, unless, like Daniel in the audience, has been learning Mandarin for the last number of years, that's fine, but not a country that is relevant to your native tongue. So basically having students go into a situation of maximal discomfort, maximal unfamiliarity to lead to maximal growth as a person, as a leader, as an entrepreneur. We'll talk a bit about the program now. Oh, after watching this epic video.
What is a life like without fear?
At the Cansbridge Fellowship, we ask ourselves this question constantly as we seek to better understand ourselves and the world around us, create opportunities in places we've never been, and foster a community that lifts each other to new heights. Turns out, a life without fear doesn't mean never being scared. It's about doing things that are uncomfortable and knowing you'll come out stronger on the other end.
So the fellowship was started in 2011, and at the time it started as a very simple idea of sending some awesome Canadian university students to do an internship in Asia. And it grew from there to a collection of the best and the brightest.
You can't possibly think that one person can dramatically impact everyone and change the direction of the world, but they can change the direction of their lives. And that's the important part here, is realizing that you have agency, that you're in control of your own decisions, and that you have a responsibility to do what you think is right.
So you need the mental models, you need the basic skill sets to to live a life, to think about the possibilities without fear. And then on top of that, you have a whole cohort of people who are just as bright, just as energetic, just as aggressive, hardworking as you are, right? Doing the same thing, right? So now it's amplified, right? This feeling, this mental model, this mindset is amplified.
I really see the fellowship becoming a movement of Canadian young people who are charting a unique path, doing so in community and collaborating on a global scale.
I want to change the world to be less hungry.
To be more generous.
To be more inspired.
Be fearless.
Build communities.
Compassionate.
Courageous.
Kind. Cheerful. To feel like they can do anything.
You'll notice the subliminal messaging to apply, the clicking the button. Amazing. Pass it off to Charlie to talk about the program.
Yeah, so who here has heard of Cansbridge before? Okay, so yeah, some of you know what we do and what we're about. But essentially, Cansbridge is, you can break it down into three things. Cansbridge, the programming starts with this onboarding. That starts way before you meet any of the other fellows in person. You have these workshops where past fellows and execs.
Charlie, can we get you to speak into the microphone just so those online can also hear? Thank you so much.
Absolutely, I'm not used to this, I'm sorry. But essentially, the onboarding consists of several weeks, almost months of preparation before you meet any of the other fellows. They host workshops on important skills that you'll need throughout the summer, whether it's how to land the internship that you're supposed to self-source through cold emailing. What's the best approach to that? All the way to what are cultural specificities that you should be aware of, or aspects of traveling that you might not think of before leaving, but that you should know. These are all part of the onboarding done on Zoom while you're still at home before you all get together in this in-person onboarding, which it happens in what we call like a boot camp and CFC programming. So what is that? Well, boot camp is about 5 days that you spend in a very camp-like setting with the other 2020, well, 5 fellows or the other present cohort. And it's all about bonding, really. It's getting to know the people that you're gonna be part of a community with. And it's also still, again, about equipping you with the skills that you're gonna need throughout your summer, whether that's being okay with weird situations or silence. You know, we did this awkwardness therapy session, which I can talk about more later. Or we did stuff like rejection therapy, which is asking for things, even if it makes you uncomfortable, because you're bound to do that throughout your summer in Cansbridge. So there's that portion of boot camp with bonding and skill building, and then there's the CFC, which is meeting the previous generation of fellows and attending conferences in some really cool venues across the city. Last year, CFC and boot camp was in New York, and the previous year it was in San Francisco. This year it's in Montreal. But after boot camp and after the onboarding, it's the part that I think a lot of you are all aware of or have probably heard of. It's the internship. So the internship is funded by Cansbridge through a $10,000 stipend. And they give you a scholarship, but you have to self-source it. You have to figure out what you want to do, where you want to do it, and how to get it. They give you the skills necessary to get there, but you still have to do the work of getting it. And some fellows, like me, I was very, very fortunate to land my dream internship on the first try. Other fellows, it takes many, many times. No one gives up. Everyone ends up with a wonderful internship and a pretty fascinating experience at the end of the summer. And you're supported by a whole generation or several generations of cohorts before you. So you're not alone in the process. And there's always someone who knows somebody or can help you in the process. On my left here, there's a little list of places people have completed their internships and the types of internships they've completed. It varies a lot. I did mine in a research institute working on sustainable economics, but you have the whole range of opportunities, and it really depends on what you want to do and what you're able to go and get. And then throughout and after, Cansbridge is a community. It's a group of people, like you heard in the video, that are ambitious, generous, patient. They're all these very positive things, and they're there for you and for each other. In Montreal, we're, I think, roughly 10 fellows that we kind of get together every now and then, whether it's just for supper, or I know that they're planning to get together to review the applications this year. It really is a community, and you'll realize that when you meet them at boot camp. You'll realize that when you're in your country in Asia. You'll realize it after, when the internship experience is over, and you still have these friends for life. So, fellowship experience. I'll try to go over mine as briefly as possible. And if you guys have questions about the particularities of it, feel free to come ask me at the end or during the Q&A session. But essentially, I spent my summer in Jakarta, in Indonesia, working at the Sustainable Economics Center for a research institute over there. And for me, what happened is I was in such a routine in school, and I was so used to my habits, to speaking the language, to all that, and I got there, and my God, it's so different. And so for the first month, it feels like you're traveling, right? You're not living there, you're traveling. So you do so much. You fill your days. Before work, you do a little activity, or you go try a restaurant, and then you work, and then after work, you do something. And so you pack that first month, and it's amazing. And then after a month, you're like, wow, okay, this has been going by so fast. And then the tempo starts slowing down. And you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna be here for 3 months. I gotta pace myself. And at that point, sometimes the loneliness starts kicking in. And it's in that moment that you realize, well, okay, I might be alone in this city, but I'm connected to a whole bunch of people in the same experience as me that are all probably living the same thing. So at that point, I called Gabi, and I was like, Gabi, what do you do when you're lonely? And the answer was, well, you go out and you solve that issue. You build your community where you are, and that's what I did. And it sounds silly, but if back home you're not the type to seek out friendships actively because you already have your social group, in Asia, it falls on you to do it. And it's extremely rewarding to do that. I think one of my favorite parts of my summer was a really super simple moment where I shared a few drinks on the rooftop of my building with some colleagues. And here at home, I don't know if before this experience I would have had the reflex to invite colleagues over for drinks. But there, I mean, if I wanted community, I had to build it. And if I wanted human connection, live in the moment and on a regular basis, well, I had to go out and do it. And it's sometimes the simplest realizations that are the most impactful. And for me, that's one of them. And then there's also all the highlights of traveling, right? You're in Asia, everything's close, and relatively inexpensive. And so you get to travel to all these different countries and realize just the diversity of culture in Asia. And so that was fascinating to me. I'll keep it to that. If you guys have any other questions about my personal experience, you can talk to me at the end.
So as you guys can maybe tell, there's like a very strong kind of make it happen attitude within the fellowship. Like if you come to anyone in the fellowship and express a challenge, we will very much not try and solve it for you, but empower you or challenge you to solve it for yourself by just kind of reflecting back. Like if you want friends, like make it happen. If you want to start a project, make it happen. If you want to change your career, make it happen. So it's a pretty common response, I'd say, to just about everything in the fellowship community. So is anyone like at least a little bit interested in applying at this point? Okay, we got at least one hand. Okay, nice, amazing. So it's worth us talking about selections. So when we look at fellows' applications or candidates' applications, we are not accepting Transcripts, we're not looking at your GPA, we don't care. What we're looking at is a character set. So we're asking you a series of questions through an application that has a number of short answer written questions, as well as an optional video that allows you to demonstrate how you align with these 5 Cansbridge characteristics. So the pieces are, first, curiosity. We want you to have something that you're deeply fired up about and that you could talk for hours about. And then action bias, because we want you to not just talk about things, but we want you to take your ideas and your fascinations and bring them to reality. We care about resilience, because when you take action on things, a lot of the time you're going to be challenged or rejected or you're going to fail. And so we want you to be able to demonstrate that you've picked yourself back up again and persevered. Community orientation, because we are first and foremost a community. We've been built on an entirely volunteer basis by our members, by our fellows for the last 14 years. And so we need people to be not only fellows, but also team members. And then humility, because if you've gone and you've taken action and you've done things and you've maybe had some level of success, there's a risk that it gets to your head. And so we want people that keep their egos in check and realize that they always have more ways in which they can learn, more ways to grow, and those will make really great members of our community. As for eligibility, if you're currently enrolled at Concordia or McGill or any other post-secondary program, congratulations, you're eligible. And as long as you are also available for 1 hour weekly or bi-weekly throughout the winter, and then to join us in person here in Montreal next May for our boot camping conference, and then also, of course, available to do your internship during the summer or the first available co-op term after the conference. Then again, that's the whole package. Congratulations, you are eligible. The timeline slide here is a little spookier, because we are coming up towards that second dot, the application deadline. So October 15th, end of day in PST, is when the applications this year for the 2025 cohort will be due. So it's coming up very quick, but I hope that if people are potentially learning about this opportunity for the first time, at least you've still got 4 more days to make it happen, and to reflect on how you align to all those Cansbridge characteristics, and then express that to us through the application. We will then be reviewing all those applications until the end of October, and then doing first, second, and third round interviews until just before the holidays. And then we'll have a final cohort chosen just before Christmas. So it's a quick turnaround, but we hope that if you feel like you are a fit for this opportunity, that you throw yourself at the application and give it your best shot, and we will really look forward to reading it. I know this was included in the video, but I just wanted to highlight again this language around the Cansbridge movement. I've started to use this language because although we can only accept like 15 to 20 fellows per year, I'm very excited to see more students, whether as fellows or not, pursuing opportunities like this, where they are carving their own path on a global scale with a community of people lifting each other up. Like technically, aside of course from the fact that the fellowship experience lowers the financial barrier to making something like this happen, there's technically nothing stopping anyone in this room or online or who knows about the fellowship to start cold emailing organizations halfway across the world tomorrow. If there's an experience that you think would be meaningful for you in your personal and professional growth, you can just go make that happen for yourself, and you can pitch yourself over email, over Zoom, and you can kind of carve this path that's different than maybe the internship opportunities presented to you by your co-op office or by your parents. And so we really hope to instill an entrepreneurial mindset in people in that sense of, again, having an idea of what would be an ideal experience for them and then going and making it happen. Cool. So the next kind of like few minutes here, we'll talk about this concept of bridging or connecting to yourself. Normally we'd have Lynn and Conrad, who Lynn is a 2019 fellow, YC founder, Forbes 30 under 30, Teal fellow, like list of accolades goes on, but she just got married, so she will not be joining us today. But her and Conrad, who is the co-founder of Cansbridge Scholars, would normally be chatting about this concept of Ikigai. Has anyone heard of Ikigai before? Okay, nice, at least one. Do you guys want to try to define it without looking at the Janelle? What about you? Yeah. Nice. Yeah, cool. So drive to make something happen that aligns with your personal values, amazing. There's various ways in which Ikigai can be defined, or various mental models that are associated with it. There's a common kind of westernized version of it that includes 4 circles in kind of like a 4-part Venn diagram, with the intersection at the middle being your Ikigai, and the components are basically what you're good at, what you're passionate about, what the world needs, and how you can make money. And we know by that last circle that it's the Western version because it makes sure to include how you can make money in a capitalist system. But I like this model because it starts to get your brain thinking about, again, what your skills are, what your direction in life might be, and how you can make that work in a reality where you need to feed yourself, put a roof over your head. And by trying to fill in that last circle, it often can lend itself well to thinking about maybe what entrepreneurial ventures might be relevant for you to start, because if you can't find the intersection of all those things in an existing organization, sometimes you have to be the intersection of those things and create that ikigai for yourself. So I bring up this topic because I think as people are looking to reflect on themselves and their mission as they're filling out the fellowship application process, it's a pretty good model to use to spur on that reflection, and we hope it's valuable to you and then being able to express who you are in the process. Lynn and Conrad also normally talk about this idea of not finding your passion or your ikigai, but developing it, because this is something that will be dynamic over time. Your ikigai today might be very different than your ikigai tomorrow or next year, and that's okay. And so again, by challenging you through the fellowship application process to represent who you are, what you care about, what you're good at, we're not saying that you have to be that way forever, or you have to tell us your like perfectly linear, set in stone 10-year plan. If you have that, amazing, but we also appreciate people that realize that it's going to change over time, but at least if you're running hard in one direction, as long as you're open to kind of changing that direction as new information, new experiences come about, that's what we'd like to see as well. In terms of developing your ikigai, we talk a lot on the Fellowship Network about there being a couple components to this: your mindset, your skill set, and the community around you. So a lot of what we do in the fellowship is developing a mindset that is both global and entrepreneurial. So again, global because you're looking at global experiences, organizations that exist globally for you to collaborate with, learn from, and kind of get out of the bubble that you might be living in Montreal or in Canada, that inherently will limit your thinking if you're only thinking locally. But if you can think locally and globally, it'll make you a stronger thinker, stronger leader. And then skill set, of course, what skills you need to develop to make it happen, whatever make it happen means to you. And then community, like are you able to build that community around you to lift both you and others up in the process of achieving your goals, again, whatever they might be. Wanted to quickly shout out that in the last year, we've started a side project called Cansbridge Scholars. That's now a sister program of the fellowship that basically aims to help young people like yourselves in this process of discovering and leaning into your ikigai. It was very much born out of last year's application process, where we realized there's hundreds of students across the country that are hungry to unlock their potential and just need a little bit of help or are looking for other sources of inspiration around how to develop mindset, skill set, and community to move towards unlocking your potential or developing your ikigai. So we've developed an 8-week course that people do online, and then have various meetups as well in person, to develop all these components and help unlock your potential. If you're joining us, please, for Cansbridge, amazing, come on down. And it's a tuition-based 8-week course. Again, if you're interested in something like this, there's a cohort starting next week or a week after the fellowship application process ends. And so if you kind of like can't wait for your Cansbridge experience, this is something you can do in addition to applying for and being eligible for the fellowship. And so please check it out if this is something that interests you. Okay. We will now chat the kind of second component. Again, we've talked about ikigai as the bridge or connection to ourselves. Now we're going to talk a little bit about storytelling as a key skill to connect to each other, both in the room like right now, but then also potentially across the world in your internship search process. So again, storytelling, like we all know what storytelling is. We've been told various stories, I'm sure, throughout our lives to share lessons, knowledge, inspire us, make us act. And this is a process that we want to talk about just briefly, because again, it's going to be relevant both for your fellowship application process. Like if you've gone to an interview before and you've been asked, what's your story? Or tell us about yourself. If you're here for Cansbridge, come on in. Okay. It's pretty relevant to know how to in a concise, powerful way, convey who you are, what you can offer, and maybe what you want out of that experience. We will welcome up our friend Phil, who's an entrepreneur, investor, and a friend of Cansbridge, to just briefly chat about, through his experience, how storytelling might be relevant to an entrepreneurial or leadership journey. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Gabi. Hey, everyone. My name's Phil Rivard. I'm not dressed for the occasion, as you can see. Gabi and I were talking a little bit earlier about storytelling and how important that was. And there's often this misconception for founders to think that they don't have to sell. But when you start a business, you're the one with the insights, with the story, with the reason why you want to do what you're doing. So maybe you're ikigai in that sense, right? So you have to be able to convey that sense of belonging and the insights that you've gathered to anyone interested in either buying your product, investing in your product or your service, or in yourself. So storytelling is always important, and founders always have to sell. That's my opinion as a founder. I've had to go through that myself. I've never been a good seller, but I learned to be able to tell stories and give my point of view to other people, so that then they're interested in what I'm trying to sell or the story that I'm trying to convey. Storytelling is going to be very important as well when you're applying for Cansbridge. They want to know about you, about your story. They want to know what your plan is, but they also want to know the why. Why is it that you want to do certain things? Why is it that you're passionate about something? It's great to have that passion, but you have to be able to explain why you have that passion. Where is that passion coming from? And that's where I think storytelling comes in. You have to be able to tell your story in the light that makes you shine, but also that people can probably relate and be emotionally connected, if possible, to what you're trying to convey. So anyways, just long story short, I just wanted to make a point that storytelling is going to follow you throughout your life. And if you're applying to Cansbridge, it's really important to be able to tell your story. Thanks, everyone, and good luck with your application.
Thanks, Phil. So we'll quickly chat about, now that we know why it's important to know how to tell stories effectively, what could that look like in the context of the fellowship application, or anything really? We have kind of boiled down a bit of a structure here of the anatomy of a good story. So it has a couple of components. It starts first with a hook. If anyone's done a business case competition before, you'll often start with a fact or a question or something that draws your audience's attention in. From there, you'll present the challenge at hand or the call to adventure. If anyone remembers the hero's journey from grade 10 or 11 English, there's always a call to adventure. And then there's an action in response to that challenge or that call to adventure. Then there's a climax where the action is kind of set in, there's some sort of a resolution, or it all comes to head. So it's kind of a peak of excitement. And then there'll be an end where there'll be what my grade 8 English teacher used to call a mint, something at the end. Maybe it's a call to action, maybe it's a good quote that ends you with a good taste in your mouth at the end of the story and makes you remember that person. We have a great example of a story that is Charlie's, so I'll let him share it.
So yeah, I'll give it to you in a sec. I'll give it to you in a sec. My personal pitch that I had to develop during boot camp and then present at CFC. But without really planning for it, it does kind of fit the story arc that Gabi was telling you guys about earlier. So I might as well give it. So my name is Charles-Etienne Sirois. I have two incredibly bright older sisters, and they've always excelled both inside and outside of school. And for the longest of times, I couldn't say the same about myself. Where they shined in school, I struggled. I'm dyslexic. We found that out during the end of my primary. And so I read slower than others. I misread sentences, and I constantly make spelling mistakes. However, though I struggled with reading, I learned to listen to the thoughts, struggles, aspirations of others. And I became pretty perceptive and empathetic. So at 16, when I was reading, mind you, a book, I stumbled on this quote about how there's a need for economists with cool heads and a warm heart. And I was like, maybe that's what I should look into. And so I chose to study economics here at Concordia. And I specialize, or I choose to research environmental economics. It was my niche. So if you have a cool head and a warm heart, I'd love to listen to your story. And that's how I would end off my personal pitch. And it's a reach out to others to connect. Yeah. So with that in mind, I would love to hear someone else in this room give an attempt at a personal pitch. I think it's worthwhile for you. You just have to find the courage to do it. Anyone? There you go, Daniel. Come up here. It's okay. By the way, the first time I gave my personal pitch, terrible. So you can't do worse than I did. You have nothing to worry about. Come on. Woo!
Can we go back to the slide? Yeah. Okay. Okay, let me see. All right, 60 seconds, is that the challenge? Okay, let's see. Trying to think, okay. Growing up in Montreal, I always had a fascination for diverse cultures and people of different cultures, I would say. Then growing up, I have found the fascination for business and how the world is run in terms of trade and how the world is developing. So then I found a niche kind of forte between the two of studying international business, where I would study different cultures and see how the business and politics are run in those countries. That being said, I guess that's the action. Okay, I'm trying to think of the climax. Yeah, that being said, I want to travel the world. I want to do business. I want to study politics in different locations. So if you have a story of where you're from, I would love to hear it, and I would love to hear about your country's politics, different things like that.
Amazing. Thank you so much. For context, also, like when William, our founder, came to Western back in 2017, which was when I first heard about the fellowship, and when I first applied, but was rejected the first year, was not one of the people to stand up and volunteer. So just even getting up here and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone that way is so impressive to me. So good stuff. Awesome. Oh. Okay, speaking of storytelling, if anyone is looking to be inspired by more Cansbridge stories, we've had a lot of storytelling related activity go on in the community in the last year. We've had alumni that have written a book to compile fellow stories of their summer internships, but then how they've developed as a result in the last number of years since that experience. They've also created a podcast to interview fellows, again, a bit about their fellowship experience, but more about their philosophies on life, risk-taking, entrepreneurship, discomfort, relationships, you name it. It's a pretty amazing bit of storytelling. So check out both of these if you're looking for some inspiration in your application process. Awesome. So the last topic that we'll raise here before we break out into some conversations, can ask Charlie about his experience in Jakarta, ask Phil about his entrepreneurial initiatives, or ask each other about what you're into. I wanted to share one last piece here about, again, now that we've connected to ourselves through Ikigai, now that we've learned to connect to each other through storytelling, you're now equipped to go connect to global experience. There's one quick little parable that I want to share to leave you all with that I love. It's from a commencement speech that the author David Foster Wallace did. It's on YouTube. If you search "This is Water," you can check it out. And he has a little parable at the beginning that he probably stole from someone else, but I'm going to steal it from him. And it basically goes, there's two fish swimming along, and then an older fish comes along, and he says, "Morning, kids. How's the water?" And they look at each other, kind of confused, and then they eventually say, "What the hell is water?" Because they're fish. They've grown up in water all their lives. They don't even know there is an option to not be in water. And water in this case represents the ideas, assumptions, belief systems that are all around us all the time, that we are swimming and operating in, that are so inherent to our experience that we can't even see them. And so by having an international experience, you're basically taking yourself and putting yourself in different water. So different, again, ideas, belief systems, you name it. So then you can look back at the ones that you grew up with, and you can then begin to challenge them. You can see them clearer. You can potentially change them. And that's really powerful when you're looking to be a leader in whatever industry, whatever field you're interested in. To be an entrepreneur, you want to change the systems in which you grew up in. You have to first be able to see them. And so I think international experience is one of the most powerful ways to develop your clarity of thinking and to develop your perspective, both on the world, but also on the circumstances in which you grew up with at home. So with that, I'll leave you with a few quick more thoughts about why work in Asia. Again, as an aspiring leader, there are political, economic, environmental, and technological context that it is quite relevant for you to understand how those things operate in a continent that's completely different than where you grew up, or a country that's maybe different than where you grew up if you did grow up in Asia. And so again, you're developing your international perspective, developing your situational awareness, and it's going to make you a stronger leader. With that concludes the kind of formal portion of our event here today. I just wanted to quickly recognize a few partners that enable us to travel across the country and give sessions like this. The Creative Solution is an amazing UBC student-led creative agency that did the video that you saw at the beginning. They've been a joy to work with, and they're going to do big things. So check them out if you're looking for videos, creative services, you name it. Is anyone in fourth year here by chance? Okay, nice. So this is super, super relevant. This is another amazing, you've already applied. Fantastic. Okay, it's another amazing scholarship opportunity called Schwarzman Scholars. That's a fully funded master's degree in international affairs in Tsinghua University in Beijing. So that's 100 students from all around the world who are gathering to learn in this really cross-cultural environment with international students. And so definitely check that out, a really amazing other scholarship opportunity. And then the last one here, if anyone identifies as a maker or creator or designer in some way, scan the QR code, because some of our partners, this is a Taiwanese-based organization that's starting a marketplace for designers to access international markets. Yeah, scan that QR code. They've been amazing, another joy to work with, and another enabler of this great recruitment tour. Oh, sorry, I'll go back for you. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for coming in person and those that maybe tuned in on Zoom. This has been really fun to again be at Concordia for the first time ever. And I hope that if again this opportunity interests you either for the fellowship by the due date of October 15th, hop on over to the website and consider filling out an application. And then if you're looking again to get your Cansbridge experience even sooner, then check out cansbridgescholars.com because they'll be launching the next cohort in 2 weeks' time. So thank you all so much, and we'll hang around for some questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for coming in and activating this conversation here at Forest-Space. We're gonna close up the Zoom and the live stream now, but just so you know, this will be available on our YouTube for you to revisit and share. So thanks again, and we'll head into the more casual section of Q&A. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Forest Space.